Black magic against me, a tale of obsession and spells. Sarah never imagined that the pursuit of a bright future could lead her into such a dark abyss. At 21, coming from a small rural town in Ohio, she arrived in Boston full of dreams, determined to become a doctor. The modest apartment, sustained with sacrifice by her family, was her refuge, until her father's illness forced drastic cuts. With no alternative, she agreed to share a student apartment, trading privacy for economy. What seemed like a rational solution soon proved to be the beginning of a nightmare. The apartment was large, old, with long hallways and windows that rattled with the slightest breeze. 8 girls shared the space. Sarah began sleeping in a room with 4 others. At first, everything seemed normal. Her roommates were friendly, except Brenda, who exuded contempt and hostility. Sarah didn't mind, too busy with exams and homesickness. But behind the scenes, the other girls whispered. Brenda's mother was known for practicing black magic and sometimes visited the apartment for mysterious work. In less than a month, Sarah's life turned into chaos. Her clothes appeared stained with strange liquids, food mysteriously vanished, and her mattress was repeatedly wet. The discomfort grew, but Sarah clung to her goal of studying, trying to ignore the signs. For Christmas, she traveled to Ohio, leaving belongings in an unlocked closet. 30 days later, upon returning, she was greeted by a putrid, almost cadaverous smell that permeated the empty apartment. She searched the kitchen, but found no explanation. She left the windows open, went out for a walk. When she returned, the smell was gone, but the unease persisted. At night, talking to her boyfriend on her laptop, she noticed dark splatters on the wall behind her bed. She found it strange, but preferred not to dwell on it. The semester began, and the intense study routine intensified. But the atmosphere of the apartment seemed increasingly hostile, as if something invisible was lurking. The tension increased when Sarah realized that a post-bath perfume was adulterated, full of water, oil, and dirt. She suspected Brenda and, for the first time, confronted her. The argument was useless. Without proof, nothing changed. Days later, a blouse disappeared and reappeared in the bathroom, permeated with the smell of smoke. Sarah thought a roommate had smoked secretly, but didn't want to cause trouble. Small discomforts accumulated, making the environment increasingly oppressive. One dawn, while studying in the dark living room, she heard a crash in the kitchen, pots falling, doors slamming. She rushed to see, but everything was in order. She returned to the living room, nervous, and then saw a black shadow running towards the kitchen. At the same instant, the noises started again. Sarah hid under the covers, trembling, and only managed to sleep at dawn. She woke up exhausted, nauseous, and weak. She didn't go to college that day. Alone in the afternoon, she went to prepare a snack. A shadow passed behind her, and the living room window slammed shut. The fear was paralyzing. She grabbed her key and fled to her boyfriend's aunt's house, only returning at night. She decided to confide in a colleague, who confessed to also witnessing strange things. Another colleague had already seen a figure sitting in the living room, staring down the hallway. Sarah realized she wasn't alone in this. The apartment was the scene of something sinister. One Saturday night, Sarah was alone at home. Her boyfriend was on call. Her roommates had gone out. The silence was suffocating. Suddenly, she felt the temperature plummet, a biting cold that made her shiver. She grabbed her Bible and began to read Psalm 91. It was then that she heard a grotesque laugh echoing through the bedroom hallway. Despair took over. Crying, she went downstairs in her pajamas and stayed with the doorman until her roommates returned. When she recounted what had happened, one of the girls began to tremble uncontrollably, as if having an epileptic seizure. Another ran to get water, but came back screaming. All the cabinet doors were open, and the food from the refrigerator was scattered on the floor. Panic was widespread. They took their colleague to the hospital, but no one wanted to comment on what happened. At the hospital, Sarah received a call from her mother. Her sister, Jessica, had suffered a domestic accident and would need surgery. Desperate, Sarah traveled to Ohio by bus. Upon arriving, she found her father silent, her sister hospitalized, her mother worried. She decided to stay home for a while, but didn't tell them anything about what she was experiencing in Boston. At her parents' house, Sarah tried to rest, but the terror followed her. At 3:11 a.m., the same time as the noises in the apartment, she woke up startled. She saw a black shadow sitting on the bedroom floor, staring fixedly at her. She wanted to turn on the light, but couldn't find the switch. When she finally managed to, the shadow disappeared. The fear was so intense that she stayed awake the rest of the night. Days later, Sarah entered a vegetative state. She wasn't eating, sleeping, or studying, and barely spoke. She felt drained, as if something was sucking her vital energy. When she slept, she felt someone pulling the covers, and the wardrobe doors would be open in the morning. Her health worsened, vomiting, fever, weakness. The doctor only diagnosed a virus. Jessica, already recovering, visited her and heard the full account. Her mother, skeptical, revealed that her father had seen a black shadow in Sarah's room on the same day she embarked for Ohio. Jessica insisted on taking her to a spiritual center. Sarah, raised in a religious environment, resisted, but desperation prevailed. As she got ready, a heavy noise dropped in the room. Her mother and sister hurried her. "Just go as you are, no need to change clothes." At the Umbanda Center, Sarah was received with strangeness. The environment was heavy but welcoming. The man who attended her went into a trance and began asking questions. If she had dabbled in black magic, played with a Ouija board. Sarah denied everything. He then stated that a work had been done against her, using a personal object as a key. Immediately, Sarah remembered the missing blouse that was later found smelling of smoke. The man passed a smoke bucket around her, chanting incomprehensible words. A sharp pain took over Sarah's stomach, and she vomited a green, watery, odorless liquid. Everyone in the room stopped to look. In that instant, Sarah felt a transformation. The weight she carried disappeared, and the will to live returned.
The medium explained, "You are a person of great light. What was thrown at you should have already ended your life. The goal was to destroy you little by little, without a trace. Don't worry, what was behind you will return to whoever sent it 3 times worse. Don't think of revenge, just live your life. What goes around comes around." Sarah received instructions. Place a glass of water under the bed for 3 days and 2 sansevieria leaves in an X shape under the mattress. Since that night, she saw nothing strange again. Her energy returned, the sadness dissipated, and she resumed her studies and relationship. Later, talking to her brother-in-law, who had incorporated the entity, he reported only remembering seeing a woman with an angry expression in Sarah's place. It wasn't her, but another presence. 4 days later, Sarah returned to Boston, determined not to go back to the old apartment. Upon arriving, she learned that Brenda had had a breakdown and disappeared without explanation. Her roommates were perplexed, but Sarah understood perfectly what had happened. She felt a mix of relief and compassion, knowing that the cycle of malice had been broken. The experience left deep marks. Sarah moved to another apartment, kept her distance from Brenda and any negative environment. Life returned to normal, but the fear of being targeted by black magic never completely left her. Over time, Sarah changed her major from medicine to nutrition and moved to a larger city, perhaps Chicago. The trauma was behind her, but the lessons remained. She became more reserved, suspicious of whom she allowed access to her belongings. The advice was clear. Be careful who has access to your things, because not everyone has a good heart. The memory of the blouse used in the spell haunted her. She never again accepted food or drink from strangers, nor lent personal objects unnecessarily. Sarah realized that evil can manifest in subtle ways, infiltrating daily life until it corrodes the will to live. What begins as small sabotages can escalate into a true spiritual war. The experience taught that faith, vigilance, and family support are the best defenses against invisible forces. Sarah also began to reflect on cases of sudden depression, unexplained suicides, and illnesses that defy medicine. Are all these cases just chemical issues, or is there something more, something invisible and malignant acting in the shadows? She doesn't dismiss medicine, but she learned to respect the inexplicable. She heard stories of people who, for no apparent reason, lost their zest for life, fell ill, or saw their lives crumble after trivial conflicts, and, in some cases, discovered they were victims of black magic. Contact with the spiritual center changed her worldview. She learned that good and evil coexist, and that inner light can be the only barrier against spiritual attacks. The protection ritual, simple but powerful, became part of her routine. Sarah began carrying a sansevieria leaf in her purse and keeping a glass of water beside her bed on sleepless nights. Years later, Sarah shares her story as a warning. The account is not just about terror, but about survival and overcoming. She advises, be careful what you eat from others' hands. She remembers the case of a neighbor who offered polenta to a girl's father containing a black magic spell. The girl fell ill forever. Sarah understands that there are people capable of anything out of envy or resentment, and that malice can disguise itself as kindness.
Today, Sarah lives in peace, but maintains vigilance. The experience taught her to value intuition and to seek help when necessary. She became more religious, attends services, and maintains faith as a shield. The fear never completely disappeared, but it was replaced by respect for the unknown. Sarah concludes her account with a warning. Not all evil is visible. Sometimes what destroys a life begins with an envious glance, a borrowed object, an offered meal. Protect yourself, value your light, and never underestimate the power of shadows. Sarah's story is a reminder that the supernatural can be closer than we imagine, and that, in a world where hatred and envy circulate freely, faith and spiritual protection are indispensable weapons. To those who listen to her story, Sarah leaves a piece of advice. If you feel something is wrong, don't hesitate to seek help. Don't face the invisible alone. And above all, never doubt the power of good, because in the end, it is what keeps the darkness away.